Hey guys, back with another video. Today I want to talk about panning drums, a very important part of your mix. First, let me say that this is a consensus or culmination of much research on the web about how to pan drums and how to do it in the right way. These are guidelines, and they're basically rules are made to be broken. You're going to find in your mix that these things may work. There's certain tenets that will always be constant, but you may find that some of the drum instruments have to be panned a little bit differently. So what's very common is to think of panning drums from the audience perspective. So here we have a picture of basically viewing a band set up from the audience. You've got your drums in the middle, guitars on either side of that, keyboards on the outside. Basically, you've got, you think of it from the DAW's perspective, center 0, right 100, left 100. Okay? Generally, or pretty much all the time, your drums are going to want to stay within this red zone, which is about 20 or maybe 15 left and 15 right. Okay? You may find sometimes you want to move your cymbals out a little further, like particularly your crash cymbals, but generally you want to keep it right in here because you don't want those sounds interfering with sounds that are outside of the outer bands, if you will, of the track. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at how the suggested method for panning drums. So generally, the rule of thumb is the snare and the kick are always in the center. Now, some say that you should move the snare slightly to the right of the kick, but most professional producers stick with the plan of keeping the snare and kick right in the middle. Those are the two driving forces of your rhythm section, and it's really where they need to be. Then you have your toms, your two top toms here, or high toms. We have one to the left about 5, and one to the right about 5. So those have a little bit of separation. Then you have your floor tom, which is left 7. Okay, your crashes are at left 10 and right 10. Your ride at left 13, and your hi-hat at right 13. So you think of this, it's a distributed panning as if how a kit would be set up, right? So, and you may want to expand this out a little bit. You may want to have your toms at 8 or 9, okay, and then put your ride out further and your crash out further. But I'd probably want to stay within 15, 20 on each side for in particular for the drums themselves. Now I found on some tracks that if you have to experiment, some tracks the crashes sound better when they're further out. Okay, so that's helpful. Also, in addition to this, and when we take a look at Studio One, you'll see. I'll show you this. You also want to have overhead tracks to get the whole ambiance of the drums, and those are panned hard left, hard right in stereo. And the volume of those are very low. It's just to pick up the accents of the cymbals and some of the, really more of the higher frequencies. And if you use that, you'll see that the crash cymbals just pan out from, or just when you hit a crash, it just spreads out from the center out to the left and right channels. So another thing you can experiment. So let's take a look at Studio One. And this is a drum track I've got set up. You can see I've got separate channels for each instrument. What I generally do is I mix down a full render. We use Beatcraft for drums. Mix down a full render of Beatcraft. Use that for tracking, and then once that's done, I'll render each of the instruments separately so that we can control them separately. Okay. And right now, if you listen to this, I've got the pans all set at 0. Okay, at center, and you can see it's all right in the middle, muddy. Actually, you know what? I should turn off the reverb because it's probably giving it, moving up the stereo. There you go. So that's all in the center. Okay, actually, let me turn overheads off. Now it's all in the center. Okay, so I've got to pan that out. So let me just put this back on. Okay, so what I want to do is I've got my kick and my snare in the center. Okay, this is the second snare that I have. It's also in the center. Hi-hats, I want to go to right 13. Okay. The ride, I want to go to left 13. Okay. Crash, I want to go to left 10 and right 10. Now I've got two crashes here, so you may want to experiment which one should go on the left and which one should go on the right. You know, basically how they, depending on how they are sonically, but it's something you can check out. My high tom is going to be right 5. My mid tom is going to be left 5, and my floor tom is going to be left 7. And that's the basic setup. Okay, so now if you give a listen, you'll hear it more panned out. You can hear that crash is a little bit to the left and the right of the center. Now if I bring in the overheads, let me just start this again. The overheads panned hard left, hard right in stereo. You hear them start to come out in the left and the right. That's with the overheads. That's without. See it? So it really gets you outside in the left and the right. That's why overheads are so important. So that's basically how you pan drums. Again, don't underestimate the importance of the overheads. And what I do with the overheads is basically I use the full render, and I just basically make 2 tracks and delay the second track so that it's in stereo. Okay, then I'll tie these 2 tracks together so I can use the volume equally, and then I'll just keep it at a low volume just to get those little tailing high-end signatures out to the left and right speakers. Okay, so that's basically how to pan drums. Again, this is a basis. It's not a set fast rule. It's a good starting point. You'll find, depending on the mix that you're working on, you may want to vary from this slightly, but it's certainly a good place to start. Okay. Hope that was helpful. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.